In my mind, quitting was always a bad thing. It was a lazy approach. It was an easy thing to do when things were difficult. But the more I traveled, the more I realized how wrong I was. Let's suppose we start learning a new language. We're so excited that very soon we understand some words and then sentences. In fact, we're now able to speak a bit. We decide we want to have a basic conversation with natives, so we keep learning. Progress made, and we are now able to make simple sentences, and we can understand some key points even though the conversation might be limited in terms of vocabulary, for example. We like it so much that we want to speak and understand well with almost no mistakes. However, we realize we're not learning as fast as before when we're struggling. We come to the conclusion that it's not worth the effort. This is a common human behavior. We quit when it hurts. So there's a very interesting book I read a few years ago in Switzerland explaining some of these concepts, but for me there's really 3 lessons to understand the difference between giving up because it's easier and giving up because it's wiser. Whatever project we undertake will be struggling at some point. There will be some challenges hiding behind our initial excitement. Unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much we plan, there will always be something that we need to face. When I lived in France, one day I went to a retail store to get some new shoes in Paris. I saw somebody refilling the shelves, and I asked that person if I could get some help because I couldn't find my number. He looked a bit stressed. Perhaps my accent was not perfect, but he helped me find my number. And then we started a little conversation, and he was telling me that his full-time job was to refill the shelves because he didn't want to deal with customers. Right after I left the retail store, I took the metro to come back home, and that conversation was still in my mind. I was thinking that if he had only to refill the shelves, he could potentially be easily replaceable, right? But if he, for example, could add just one more task, such as becoming good at handling difficult customers, this could be precious for the company he worked for. So I'm saying this because to overcome the dip, I feel like we need to embrace increasingly hard challenges. It's like running. If we want to run a marathon, then when we train, we need to increase our mileage gradually, right? Of course, it's not just that, but also proper diet, sleep, have some supplements to recover, and so on. But I make this analogy because our personal development is a muscle. We need to push the limits a bit further. Emerging from the deep also implies consistency. These days we want things now, literally right now. And this is crazy, and I struggle all the time because it's toxic. Let's say we're trying to sell a new product and we expect to have a high quality review without even spending money. Or the other way around, we have an amazing product and we want results straight away. But the thing is, sometimes we might need to spend a very long time in the deep of getting enough customers. In school we had to be quite good at many things. In post-school world, it's better to be excellent at one thing. When looking for an engineer, people don't care if he or she can also play the piano. They just want them to provide a great service. Specializing is essential for us to overcome the dips. When learning languages, at some point we know about something called Zipf's law. For some reason we overcomplicate it, but essentially it describes that in every language, the most frequent word takes place twice as often as the second most frequent word, then 3 times as often as the next word, and so on until the last frequent word. Taking this law beyond languages is a good way to understand the difference between being first and being second. This means being the very best at what we do will bring us much better results than being second or one of the best. I know what you think. You're right, this is a cliche, but stay with me, just for 1 minute. Let's keep this simple and realistic. Let's say I'm an engineer. The question is, can I be the best in the world? Unlikely. Can I be the best in my country? It depends on many factors, but unlikely as well. Can I be the best in the place I work? Probably it can take me a few years, but it's not impossible. Can I be the best in my team? Definitely yes. My point is that we live in a society that unfortunately likes winners. These days people don't want to to waste their time and are always looking for the best movies to watch, the best places to eat, the best countries to travel, the best books to read, and so on. I definitely disagree with everything about this, but I'm only bringing this because it's a fact. So when we travel to a new place and ask locals for a typical restaurant, not always, but very often they send me to the most famous one in town. And as a result, the majority of tourists are likely to eat in the very same place. Failing is not a choice, but the only option we have left once we've used up all our resources. And here's the thing, smart quitting is not failing, it's a way of avoiding failure. In this book, Seth Godin explains this in a very simple way. Strategic quitting is a conscious decision you make based on the choices that are available to you. If you realize you're at a dead end compared with what you could be investing in, quitting is not only a reasonable choice, it's a smart one. Sometimes quitting is the wisest thing to do, and the point this book is trying to make is that if we realize we're significantly over-investing time and money to be the first in our market, we should consider shifting from one niche to another one. And this doesn't mean dropping everything we do and change it. Sometimes it's just a very small change that we need to make to have different results. There's another book called Atomic Habits, and James Clear explains this from a different angle, but the result is the same. It's crucial to master the tiny behaviors that lead to remarkable results. I remember when I lived in Paris, I started a business that failed completely because I was investing a lot of time, money, and trying to be the first in a niche that I was not really good at. At that time, I didn't see it that way, but perhaps I should have changed my niche. The more I think about it, the more I believe that everything happens for a reason, even if we're not able to see it. That temporary defeat was a wake-up call for me. A few years later, I relocated to London, and eventually all things started to fall into place. The truth is that we can't do everything. Any achievement comes from quitting something to free up time and energy for what we consider more effective. So it's important to be realistic and work smarter. I personally failed many times, but the ones that I truly succeeded, I tried to set goals, deadlines, and tolerances to have a framework in terms of when to smart quit or work harder. So if we're thinking of dropping out of college or start a new business or any new challenge, I feel like it's worth understanding more about this whole concept of smart quitting, and I found this book to be really a great starting point. If you like this video, you might also want to check this video over here about how learning languages improved my life in 4 different ways. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Adiós amigos, hasta la próxima.